The Missionary's Heavenly Calling Welcome. Today, I invite you to hear a remarkable story, a testimony that transcends earthly experiences and brings us face to face with divine revelation. A missionary, through prayer and devotion, was lifted to heaven and shown urgent messages from God about the current state of faith and the church. These messages are not just meant for her, but for all of us. For many, such hardships would be discouraging, but Elizabe found her faith growing stronger as she endured these trials. Her health struggles became an opportunity to draw closer to God, finding solace in prayer and a sense of divine purpose. During this time, she felt God's presence even more vividly, as though He were preparing her spirit for something beyond earthly understanding. The isolation and weakness she felt in her body were replaced by a deep spiritual strength, a conviction that something extraordinary was unfolding. Her spirit was ready, even if her body was not. One night as she lay in prayer, a peace like no other enveloped her. This peace transcended anything she had ever known, and she felt as though her spirit was being lifted. Her soul seemed to detach from earthly constraints, feeling lighter, as if drawn upwards by an unseen hand. She describes this experience as a gentle yet powerful invitation to step beyond the physical realm and into the spiritual. In this state, Elizabe felt her pain melting away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of tranquility. She sensed that she was entering a realm of divine presence, a place where earthly troubles no longer mattered. Her vision filled with a warm, radiant light that brought a deep sense of clarity and purpose. As she ascended, she understood that this was no ordinary experience. She was being called to witness something far greater than herself. This encounter was a heavenly invitation, a call to receive a message that would shape her mission and the lives of those who would hear it. In the next section, we will journey with Elizabe as she encounters an angelic presence that delivers a sacred message, one that defines her purpose and reveals what she must share with the world. The angel's message. Upon entering the celestial realm, Elizabe found herself in the presence of an angel. This angel, radiant and filled with authority, addressed her as a vessel, indicating her role as one chosen to carry forth divine messages. The title was no mere term. It was a designation that signified her responsibility to bring the words of God to a world that had lost its way. The angel guided her to a heavenly garden, a place so beautiful it defied earthly description. Within this garden stood a single brilliant flower that captured her attention. Elizabe felt compelled to reach out and touch it, but the angel stopped her, explaining that this flower symbolized the purity of divine wisdom, something to be revered, but not claimed for oneself. This act symbolized the nature of her calling. She was to witness and convey divine truths without taking them as her own. Her mission was to share these truths selflessly as a vessel of God's message. The angel's voice was gentle yet firm, reminding her that she must not remain silent, for her words would be the lifeline that many needed to reconnect with their faith. The angel imparted a clear directive. Elizabe was to serve as a messenger, bearing witness to the wisdom and truth she had seen and guiding others back to the righteous path. She was not to hide or keep this experience to herself. Her voice would be the medium through which others could hear and heed God's call. The angel also instructed her on the importance of humility in her mission. Her purpose was not to seek personal glory, but to be a conduit of divine light. She was reminded that the glory belonged to God alone, and she was to be a servant of His message. With this understanding, Elizabe's sense of purpose deepened. She realized that her calling was not simply to inspire, but to warn and to bring others back to God's path. Her heart filled with the responsibility and privilege of this mission, knowing that the weight of her message could transform lives. As we continue, we will hear of the angel's warning to the church, a message that speaks to the moral and spiritual decay within our congregations. Stay with us to uncover this vital message for our times. A warning to the church. The angel's next message was a revelation about the current state of the church. Elizabe saw, through divine eyes, a distressing image of moral decline and spiritual neglect that had infiltrated places of worship. The angel conveyed that God was deeply saddened by the compromises made in his house as they threatened the very foundations of faith. This message revealed that church leaders were not exempt from this decay. The angel spoke with sadness about pastors and ministers who had strayed from their sacred responsibilities, allowing corruption and pride to distort their guidance. These leaders, chosen to shepherd their flocks, had in many cases lost sight of their purpose. One of the most troubling aspects of this vision was the behavior of those in visible positions within the church. The angel explained that inappropriate actions and appearances were causing distraction and disrespect in places meant for holy worship. Members were focusing on outward displays rather than true faith, dressing and behaving in ways that drew attention away from God. The angel also highlighted the ways in which technology and material distractions had crept into the church, taking people's focus away from worship. Churchgoers were increasingly using cell phones during services, engaging with worldly matters while the divine was neglected. This trend, the angel warned, was weakening the spiritual resolve of the faithful. This warning was not merely an observation, it was a call to action. The angel urged that these distractions and behaviors be addressed immediately, for they threatened the sanctity of worship and the spiritual health of the congregation. The purity of the church was at stake. Through this message, Elizabe understood that her mission was to awaken the church, to call both leaders and members back to a path of righteousness. The future of the faithful depended on a return to spiritual integrity and an abandonment of worldly distractions. In the next section, we'll explore the role of prayer as emphasized by the angel and how it acts as a shield against the forces that threaten to pull us away from God. Join us to learn the power of prayer in this divine revelation. The power of prayer. Prayer was revealed as a critical tool in the battle for spiritual purity. The angel explained to Elizabe that prayer is not just a ritual, but a powerful means of connecting with God and reinforcing spiritual strength. It is a shield that guards against the temptations and distractions of the material world. In this heavenly vision, the angel showed her the impact of a prayerful heart. She witnessed the way sincere prayer could elevate the soul, drawing it closer to divine purpose. Through prayer, individuals open themselves to receive God's wisdom, strengthening their resolve to walk the path of faith. The angel warned that the decline in prayer was one of the reasons for the church's spiritual weakness. Too often, people had become complacent, praying only when they wanted something rather than as an act of devotion. This selective approach to prayer was leaving souls vulnerable. The angel emphasized the importance of communal prayer within the church. Prayer circles, vigils, and dedicated prayer times were essential practices that helped build a spiritual shield for the congregation. Through united prayer, communities could regain their strength and turn away from worldly distractions. Elizabe was told that her mission included rekindling the fire of prayer within churches. She was to encourage others to pray consistently with sincerity and devotion. Prayer would act as the foundation upon which other spiritual practices could stand, safeguarding the church from moral decay. This message transformed Elizabe's understanding of prayer. No longer was it a personal comfort, it was a collective duty, a spiritual weapon that needed to be wielded by all believers. She left this vision with a renewed sense of urgency to inspire others to pray without ceasing. Next, we'll discuss Elizabe's personal plea for prayers and the support she seeks for her mission work, particularly in regions where faith faces constant challenges. Stay with us to understand how her journey calls for our collective response in prayer. A personal plea for support. Elizabe's journey continued with a heartfelt plea to those who would hear her message. She spoke of her mission work in regions where faith is fragile, where spiritual support is scarce, and where the presence of God must be actively fought for. Her plea was not for material support, but for the spiritual solidarity of believers. In these distant lands, the challenges are immense. Elizabe described communities who struggle daily to keep their faith alive amid persecution and hardship. Her work is to bring God's light to these places, offering spiritual refuge where the church cannot easily reach. Prayer, she explained, is her source of strength, and it is the gift she asks from her brothers and sisters in faith. The missionary's heart is steadfast, yet she knows that her journey cannot be walked alone. She needs the community's prayers to sustain her mission, for without them, her work would be far more arduous. The angel had impressed upon her the importance of collective support, of bearing one another's burdens through spiritual solidarity. This calling reminded her that faith is not an isolated experience. It is a communal bond that weaves the church together across distances. Elizabe's plea was not only for her mission, but for the renewal of each believer's commitment to faith. She called on others to strengthen their connection to God, to support her through prayer, and to continue the work of the church wherever they found themselves. Next, we'll conclude with the final messages and the profound significance of this journey. Stay with us as we bring together all the insights from this heavenly experience and reflect on what it means for our lives today. Final message and conclusion. As we close this journey, remember that this experience serves as a beacon, a reminder of our duty to walk the path of faith with vigilance and devotion. Elizabe's journey to heaven and the messages she received are not just meant to inspire, but to call us all to a higher spiritual standard. The angel's words echo in our minds. The church is in need of awakening, of returning to a state of reverence and purity. Each of us has a role in this awakening, whether through prayer, devotion, or supporting others on their spiritual journey. Let us take these messages to heart and remember our calling as vessels of God's light. If this story has touched you, consider subscribing for more transformative messages and continue exploring our channel for other videos that deepen our understanding of faith.